The Biden administration arrested Donald Trump this afternoon. They had him arraigned and fingerprinted in a Miami courthouse like the accused felon he now technically is. These were the first steps in a process that is designed to put Donald Trump behind bars for the rest of his life. Cable news carried every moment of it live. It's unprecedented, they told us, with what looked like shock. But they weren't shocked. They knew this was coming. Everyone who's paid attention knew it was. What just happened was always going to happen. It's been inevitable since February 16th, 2016. That's the day Donald Trump made a blood enemy of the largest and most powerful organization in human history, which would be the federal government. Despite what you may remember, it wasn't anything that Trump had said about immigration or trade with China or rapists from Mexico. Those are the stories that dominated the headlines that year. Trump's a racist, they screamed. Stop him! But inside Washington, that was just noise. None of it really rated. Identity politics doesn't mean much to permanent Washington. What matters, then and now, is foreign policy. The invasions and occupations and proxy wars. The decisions that determine which global populations will thrive and which will die. The policies that come with trillion-dollar price tags. The ones that, over time, have made the counties around D.C. the richest suburbs in the world. In Washington, that's what actually matters. And it's obvious when you look carefully. When there's a debate about anything else, for example, the debt ceiling, both sides take their assigned positions and they start yelling. But when Congress decides to start a war, no matter how foolish or counterproductive or obviously disconnected from America's core interests that war may be, when that happens, the leaders of both parties automatically jump behind it like circus clowns. And then they stay there, sometimes for decades. They defend that war relentlessly against all evidence until somebody finally rings the all clear bell and they can begin to admit that actually, maybe it wasn't such a great idea. We meant well, but it just didn't work out. The good news is we've learned a lot of important lessons. In the end, they usually do say something like that, but only after emotions have cooled and the damning details have begun to fade from collective memory. It's an apology that's not actually an apology, much less repentance, and it's years too late to matter in any case. But until then, that's all you're getting. Until then, no dissent is allowed. That's the first rule of Washington. But somehow Trump didn't bother to follow it. He is from out of town, so maybe he didn't know it was a rule, or maybe he just didn't care. Either way, 7.5 years later, we can point to the precise moment that permanent Washington decided to send Donald Trump to prison. Here it is. It's from the Republican candidates debate in Greenville, South Carolina.
We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East. They lied. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right.
You heard from Tucker Carlson on his Twitter show, and we got to analyze this real quick before we go to the other video. And you got to see the other video, and we'll analyze that one as well. So, President Donald Trump is being indicted by Joe Biden. They're both running for office. So is this suspect? Is it suspect, the timing of the arrest? Well, here are 3 things you should consider. Number 1, we have a $32 trillion deficit and we're in an inflation that we're never getting out of. So this could be a distraction by the big government against his opponent. Number 2, Hunter Biden is involved in this major scandal. Hunter Biden is President Joe Biden's son. So that might hurt President Joe Biden during the election cycle. So President Joe Biden probably wanted to throw dirt at his opponent. So now they're equal. And number 3, how can we not think about number 3? President Biden wants a second term and President Trump is really doing good in the polls. So if President Biden can literally eliminate Trump, then President Biden can just get a landslide. So it could also be political. You know, we've got to open our eyes to this. We've got to see that politics in America is really changing. Speak of politics in America, you're about to watch a show now, CNN, with former Don Lemon on CNN talking about Nikki Haley. And now I'll go ahead and give you my 3 cents. I'll chime in. I'm Tisha Powell. You're watching US Business News. We'll be back. Watch this segment and we'll talk more.
To talk about black Americans, that war was not fought for black people to have guns. That's not.
That war was fought for black people to have freedoms in this country. Yeah. Actually, that's why the Civil War was fought.
Okay.
And the sad
but that
part
wasn't
about
fought for black people to have guns. I think
Actually, you know, funny fact is black people did not get to enjoy the other freedoms until their Second Amendment rights were secured. And I think that that's one of the lessons that we learned.
Still aren't allowed to enjoy the freedoms.
I disagree with you on that, Don. I disagree with you. And I think you're doing a disservice to our country by failing to recognize the fact that we have equality before the law.
And you live in this country, then you can disagree with me. But we're not. You mentioned in here that
I
we
disagree.
have three different shades
Don, I
of
think we have to be able to
melanin
talk about these issues in the open, regardless of the color of our skin. Black Americans today, to say that, compare that to 1865 and 1964,
I think for you to compare it to 1865 and
have equal rights in this country.
That segment with Don Lemon and Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy is running on the GOP ticket, and he really taught back Don Lemon from CNN, former CNN anchor, about blacks. Yes, Don Lemon, yes, blacks got to own property, including guns. Think about it, people. What would a farmer do, a black farmer do? He had to have a gun. So obviously the civil rights was fought for blacks to own property, which include guns, Don Lemon. Come on, you didn't need a lesson on this. If you think this is bad, listen to the next segment with former CNN anchor Don Lemon and what he's got to say about a certain woman not in her prime. We'll be back with more commentators.
I think it's
In the America I see, the permanent politician will finally retire. We'll have term limits for Congress. And mandatory mental competency tests for politicians over 75 years old.
Newly declared 2024 presidential candidate Nikki Haley sparking some debate with those comments. CNN's Don Lemon, he decided to weigh in. Here's what he said.
This whole talk about age makes me uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, you know, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. A woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What do you talk? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, it'll. If you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Here to talk about it, Kennedy and Rich Lowry. Kennedy, I saw that. Janice Dean put it on Instagram. Surely that's not what he said. It is exactly what he said.
Thank you for that, Don Lemon.
That was a segment on Fox, and they were just dissecting what Don Lemon said that day. Nikki Haley, who's also running, she's 51 years old. Don Lemon said that women are not in a prime if they are in their 50s. Prime of what, Don Lemon? Prime in what? Birth or career? I mean, come on. You've got to be more detailed. But CNN asked Don Lemon based upon that and other stuff, I suppose. And that, I gotta tell you, that speaks for itself. A woman is never out of her prime, nor is a man. As long as you're alive, whether you're a woman or a man, boy or girl, you're always in your prime. Don Lemon also said something that was wrong. He said, Google it. That's not correct, Don. If you Google it, it doesn't show the age a woman is in her prime. So what are you talking about with prime? Prime for having children? Nikki Haley isn't running to having children, Don Lemon. She's running for president. So get that in your head. Also, she's got the experience now, Don Lemon, because she's got 50 years. So she's have experience, and that's what you need to run for president, Don Lemon. You need experience, not fertility. I do not know who is telling Don Lemon these stuff, but these are why we make these videos. Folks, go ahead and hit that free like and that free subscribe button. I'm Tisha Powell, and check out the tag products today. We'll be back tomorrow with more breaking news.